Hello, writers. Come write with me. My name is Michaela Greenwood. I create worlds for mind adventures. Welcome to my channel, Write with Michaela. I'm very excited to have you join me on my channel, so don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you can go on this journey with me. Today is story time, or the day of our chapter exchange. If you're writing with me and you wish to exchange chapters, then send your chapter with written permission to writewithmichaela@gmail.com. I will post the email address at the end of the video and in the description below. I'm looking forward to reading your chapters. All chapters or writing prompts read on the channel, whether they are mine or another writer's work, are copyright protected material, and no one may use any part in writing their own stories. This story is PG-13, so if you're under 13 years of age, you need parental guidance. This story is in its rough draft stage, just as the last stories and the writing prompts we've heard. The title of today's story is Elementals, and today we are reading Chapter 2. If you would like to read along, then send to the email I stated earlier and request a PDF of the chapter. Make sure you are specific. And you can have a PDF of the chapters or the vocabulary, whatever you want. Now let's start. Elementals, Chapter 2. Escape? ? Alex awoke. She felt her head. It had a bandage and was very sore. She was in a short bed. Her legs from the knee down stuck off the little wooden bed. Alex tried to sit up, but quickly realized the ceiling was too low to do so in the bed. So she rolled to the floor. When she looked around, she could see out of her prison cell, and she saw a gnome leave out of the house very quickly. She figured he was going to alert someone that she was awake. Alex sighed. She started remembering things, and she was never on this side of the bars. She followed the law. She upheld the law. She was a detective. She shook her head. I'm dreaming. I have to be dreaming. She pushed away the thoughts that her dreams were never this vivid, with sights and sounds and smells. Something smelled good. She looked around again. The female stirring the contents of the big black kettle stared at her warily. Alex noticed the box with the stick on the table. She had not seen the gnome put the box with the stick on the table, but somehow she knew the stick was in there. She also saw the book on the table open to the picture. Alex scooted towards the bars and pressed against them. The female gnome ran out of the house. Alex watched her go. Man, you would think that I'm some really bad criminal. She laughed to herself. Well, if I'm in a dream, then I can make things happen the way I want them to happen. She stretched her arm out through the bars, like she was reaching for the box with the stick in it. Okay, I'm in Star Wars, and I'm Luke Skywalker. The gnomes aren't gnomes. They're those little people in the cloaks with the black faces that hid from R2-D2. What were they? I don't remember, and it doesn't matter. I need the Force to be with me. She stretched her hand as far as it would go. Come on, this is my dream. She closed her eyes and concentrated as she remembered Luke Skywalker doing. Alex was about to give up when she felt something sliding across her hand. She closed her hand and opened her eyes. The box was in her hand. Suddenly her heart pounded with the thought that this was real, because she could feel the box. She quickly pushed that thought away. This was not real. This was a dream. Next, she wanted to look at the book. She got the stick out of the box. Okay, now I'm in Harry Potter. She swirled the stick around with her left hand like it was a magical wand. Wingardium Leviosa. The book lifted off the table, floated in the air. Alex moved the wand different ways, and the book floated up and around and side to side until the book floated to her. She reached her arms out of the cell and closed the book so that she could fit it through the bars. Alex still sat upon the floor, and the low ceiling was just above her head. The closer she was to the bars, the higher the ceiling. The ceiling arced, like there was no definite wall and ceiling. The house was very much like an igloo, only the gnomes made it out of mud or clay. Alex looked around again. She wondered if the mud or clay made the house an adobe instead of an igloo, since the people in Alaska made igloos of ice. The little clay table took up most of the room. Various tools lay around. Stool-sized chopped logs sat around the table. Alex smiled to herself. She thought, "This is the best dream I've ever had." She could even smell warm, fresh-baked bread and the soup that was in the kettle. Her dreams were never this real, with sights and touch and smell. It was like her senses were on a luxurious vacation. She looked down at the book. At first, she thought the symbols looked like Arabic, but they stood alone. What am I thinking? This isn't Arabic. This is Greek, or at least it's very similar. Alex then heard a great commotion outside. She turned and looked, but she couldn't see through the walls. "I'm Superman," she said to herself, smiling as she relaxed some. But nothing worked, so she turned back to look through the book. Occasionally there were pictures. She found a couple more pictures of humans. Then she found the picture of herself. She stared down at the picture. Alex heard more noise outside the hut. "I should try to get out of here," she said to herself, "especially while they are busy." Alex picked up the stick and swirled it round to the door. "Wingardium Leviosa," she said, and the book floated in the air. Oh, darn. I need a new movie. Which movie unlocks doors? Well, in Beverly Hills Cop, Eddie Murphy unlocks locks. But I have nothing in my pockets. At least I don't think there is an alarm, so I don't need gum. But I'm wasting time. Oh, I know. Escape to Witch Mountain. Those kids unlocked things. But then I'd need a harmonica. Alex was growing frustrated. This is my dream. If I want the door to unlock, then it unlocks. She heard a click. She pushed her hand against the cell door. Clicked it. I did it. Okay. Just shut up before the gnomes come back, stupid. Alex looked around her cell. She wanted the book, but didn't know where she was still. She detested it when people wrote in books and thought it absolutely unforgivable to tear a page out. But this was a dream. So she tore out the picture of herself and then squeezed out of the narrow door. She briefly thought of the movie of Friday the 13th, where the girl brought the claws out of her dream, and she had showed her mother and asked how she could have that glove if she had been dreaming. She shook her head to herself. At least this was a fairly pleasant dream so far. Just she wanted the page of herself when she woke up. She started to think of whom she would show the picture to. But then she focused herself on getting out of the unlocked cell in case there was somehow a timer that would lock it again. Her shoulders were too broad for her to simply crawl out. She drug herself with her arms. At this point, she was glad for her training to be a cop. That was long ago, and now she had moved up to detective, but her training was still part of her. Finally, Alex was out of her cell. She felt better now that she was in the larger part of the hut. She looked down to her two hands. In one hand she had the stick, and in the other she had the page. She folded the page and put it in her back pocket. She crawled with the stick in her left hand. As she passed the table, she stopped and picked up a biscuit. She was indeed hungry. Alex smelled the bread and bit into it. It definitely hit the spot. She saw a little pouch on the table. She slipped another biscuit into it and tied the small bag on a belt loop. Then she crawled to the door. Alex was used to sneaking. She had to be good, because many times things went better in court. She could record the criminals before she caught them. She peeked out the door and looked around the small, quaint village. The village seemed fairly empty. She spotted some kids playing over to her left. No one seemed to be to her right. As she looked around, she realized that if she stood up, she would be taller than the huts or adobes. She laughed to herself. She was a giant in her dream. But hey, the biscuits tasted good. Again, she thought this was unlike any dream she had ever had before. Maybe she could escape the gnomes and enjoy things. Alex squeezed out of the door. She stayed crouched down and headed to her right. She was careful not to step on sticks, dead leaves. She looked over her shoulder many times. That felt strange to her, for her. Normally she snuck up on people and not away from them. Of course, a good detective would watch their backs as well. At the edge of the village, Alex decided to run a little. She jogged in the mornings before work. She had even done a couple of half marathons in her lifetime, so she just decided to have her morning jog. And once she was farther away, she would enjoy the scenery. The land was evenly sloped, but Alex still had to pay attention to her footing since she was in an unknown forest, and there was not a walk or bike path. As she jogged along, she looked at the stick in her hand. She hadn't the faintest idea why she kept it. It seemed silly, but the trap had been to catch something that wanted the stick. And maybe it was a clue. Still, it wasn't like she could bring it back to the office and turn it in, so someone could examine it and learn who it belonged to. She slid her right hand along it and thought about breaking the stick in two. That way it might fit in a pocket, and her hands could be free. Then she lost her footing and went sprawling on the ground. The stick had been over a rock and should have snapped in two, but instead it popped out of her hands and flew in the air. Alex sighed as she felt her wrist. The sprain or twist wasn't too bad, so she pushed to a stand, but the leaf slid out from under her hands. Alex caught her balance but winced from the pain in her wrist, and then she finally stood. She went over to the stick and picked it up. She examined it. What is it about this stick? This is my dream. Have I decided that this is my magic wand? That doesn't seem fair. Harry Potter got to choose his. I've only picked up this one, and it landed me in a net. Then she thought, and got me in a tiny prison. She sighed. Dreams were not always logical. Alex looked behind her. She had put a good amount of distance between her and the village, so she just walked. She rotated her hand around to work out the sprain as she walked and admired the forest. This indeed was a special place. After walking for over an hour, Alex came to the edge of the woods. Alex stepped out and stopped to look around. Tall grasses gently waved in the wind. They reminded her of Uncle William's farm. As she looked left, she could see mountains in the distance. Her eyes followed the mountains from her left to her right, to in front of her, and to the right. Directly to the right of her, she could not see mountains, so either they were farther away or they ended. She decided to head that way. She looked up to find the sun. It was directly overhead. She didn't know if the poles were the same in her dream as normal, but she decided they had to be, because that's what she knew. She felt like she was heading north, but she would have to check the sun's position in a little while to confirm that. The last thing she wanted was to go in circles in her dream. Then she might never wake up. She tried to remember what that meant. She shrugged when she didn't remember. She would just ask the police psychologist the next time she saw her. As Alex walked along, she remembered visiting Uncle William in the summers. She would help him out and he would pay her. She always went home with a wad of cash, which she would want to spend. She would have long lists of things to buy, but her mom always made her save half of the money first, and then everything always cost more than she had guessed. Alex's mind drifted back to the days she spent at Uncle William's farm as she walked along in the cool breeze. A cousin always came also. His name was Maxwell Lachlan Duval III. Everyone called him Max. Max had jet black hair that lay in waves on his head. He had a smile that melted hearts and bent them to his will. Alex had always loved his smile, and they would tease each other all the time. Then, when they became teenagers, Alex admired his handsome face. He would take off his shirt while they worked, and her eyes would linger on his muscles. Oh, he was handsome. Alas, he was her cousin, and she knew she could not fall in love with him. Otherwise, she would have just melted. Then Alex went away to college and missed a couple of summers, which made her double sad when she got the news that Uncle William had passed, and Aunt May had to sell the farm. At the funeral, Alex asked where Max was. He was the only family member missing besides crazy Aunt Polly. Someone quickly hushed Alex and told her Max was in jail. Mentioning his name would make Aunt May sad, and she didn't need that right now. Of course, the detective within her went to work, and she learned that he had gotten in with the wrong people. He had done a lot of everything: drug dealing, stealing, robbing banks, and finally killing 2 cops. After learning those things, Alex sat down and looked back over the past to see if she could figure out if she recognized Max's turning point. At that point in her life, she realized she did not want to be an accountant. She wanted to be a cop. The news shocked her parents and drove a wedge between her and her father. Alex sighed. She pulled out the other biscuit and ate it. She was so hungry that she didn't think about needing food later. Besides, this was a dream, and she would wake up, or she got hungry again, or hungry in real life. An hour later, Alex glanced up at the sun. It was indeed heading towards the mountains, so she was heading north, like she thought she was. Suddenly, a spooked rabbit dashed around her, and several birds flew south at tremendous speed. They passed the rabbit. Alex could only tell where the rabbit was because of the parted grass. Alex turned north and saw a deer running south as well. She thought of the movie Bambi. Then she saw a rider. He looked just like Max when they were teens. Jet black hair, black shirt and pants. He was riding a black horse with black bridle and a black saddle. Alex waved her hands and yelled, "Hey, over here!" She thought, finally, a person. The rider had an arrow drawn, was about to shoot the deer when he heard Alex. He slowed his horse and turned east towards her. Alex stopped waving her hands. She realized she still had the stick, so she dropped it and hoped the young man had not seen it. She glanced down to the stick at her foot. The stick had gotten her into a trap and had brought her back here, So in a way, she wanted to get rid of the bad luck charm. But Harry Potter was helpless without his wand. She laughed at herself and reminded herself that this was a dream. She did not need the stick. If only she could disguise the stick. "Hello," said the writer. The writer looked Alex over. Alex saw his eyes roaming. She didn't realize that he saw the gnome pouch hanging from her belt loop, or that he smelled the stench of giant on her, or observed the bandage on her head. "Hello," replied Alex. "I'm a bit lost. Will you tell me where the nearest village town is, and which way do I go to get there?" The writer looked to his left. Then he looked back to Alex. He looked to his right. The deer was long gone. "The nearest village is over 2 days' walk that way," he said as he pointed north. He looked again to his right. "Supper is gone." He turned his horse north. "Would you like to come to my house? My mother has vegetable soup brewing. We don't have meat to put in it." "Oh, sorry about that," replied Alex. "And I don't want to impose." "Well, the only imposition will be when my mother sees how beautiful you are, and she starts telling me that it's time for me to settle down." He smiled at her with a smile that could melt her heart. He had dimples, which added to his charm. He held out a hand to her, but Alex suddenly had a bad feeling. She was alone, and she was a woman, she thought. At least he had mentioned his mother, so there would be another woman there. Alex started to take his hand when he straightened up. "Oh, what's that?" Alex looked down at her feet and saw a piece of paper where the stick had been. She scooped it up, folded it, and put it in her pocket. "Oh, yes. Well, this is a recipe from my grandmother. I need to buy these things in the market to make it." The young man stretched his hand down to her again. Alex took it, and he pulled her up behind him on his horse. They galloped north. "Oh, by the way, my name is Emery," he said. "What's your name?" "Alex," she replied. "Alex? Is that not a boy's name?" he asked. No. Alex is short for Alexandria," she replied. They galloped on. After a while, a hummingbird flew beside them and pecked Alex with his tiny little beak. Alex shooed him away. She thought it was strange behavior for the bird, but it didn't seem that Emery had noticed. They could not run the horse the whole way, so they slowed down. Okay, writers, that is the end of chapter 2. Leave a comment on if you would have tried to break the stick. Leave a comment on if you would have accepted the ride with Emery. Once you had that bad feeling, would you have accepted the ride? Leave a comment on if you're good with directions and can pick out north from a sun's position. Leave a comment on if you would think of the stick like a lucky or unlucky charm, or would you think wand? Join me Tuesday for some jargon and a down soldier. Join me Wednesday for our book club discussion of 1984. Join me Friday for chapter 3 of Elementals. Visit my website, bymckella.com. Read some character bios. If you read some, then leave a comment on which ones you've read. All your comments will help us start conversations, build our community. Keep all comments respectful, and remember that someone else's perspective can help you with your writing. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe and the bell so we can continue to write together, and other people will have a higher chance of finding this channel, since your likes will push the video out to a greater audience. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your participation. If you know someone who would like this video, please share it with them. This is Michaela with Write with Michaela. Bye for now.